Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this Yom Yerushalayim. Today's learning is dedicated in memory of Ami Bas Aryeh Paul Casimir Yom Yochi ben Moshe Eliezer Shlomo Yechiel ben Moshe Eliezer ben Zion ben Yitzchak Aryeh ben Shimon Bas Baiba Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Katna. Wish all the families long life. So, as you can see on the ticker moving across the screen, today is a very special day. And that is, of course, that today is Yom Yerushalayim. I'm conscious that we've started a minute early, so I'm just going to say a few hellos, because otherwise people will get upset that we started too early. Good morning to Peter. Good morning to Mervyn. Hope you are all well. And a mazel tov to the Sethill family on the birth of a grandson. Mazel tov, Phil and Mandy, if you are tuning in today. Okay, so we're going to get going. So today, of course, is Yom Yerushalayim. Yom Yerushalayim celebrates the fact that the first time in Jewish history, for 3 millennia, we once again have Jerusalem under our dominion, under our sovereignty, and therefore we have the opportunity, in particular, to be able to visit the old city, to visit and pray at the Kotel in Jerusalem. And that is something that we shouldn't take for granted. It's something that I think that we all value and appreciate tremendously. Let's take a look right back in Jewish history and try and understand the importance and significance of Jerusalem. At the end of the day, Jerusalem is not like any other city. You know, Israel's not like any other country. But Jerusalem is known as the holiest city, and it's seen as a holy city not just by Jews, but universally it is seen as a holy city. But let's go back and perhaps understand what is the significance of Jerusalem and the place of Har Habayis, the place where the temple once sat and will eventually be rebuilt. So if we go back in time, we know that from the time of Abraham and Isaac, the binding of Isaac took place, the Akedah took place on Har Habayis, on the Temple Mount, and on the place of the Beis Hamikdash, the place of the Holy of Holies. And if we fast forward to the time of Jacob, so in the time of Jacob, we know that Jacob he was on the run from his brother Esau, his adversary, and he lay down that night. He'd been studying for 14 years in yeshiva, Shem Va'eva, and he lays down on the place of the temple, and he lays down and he places around his head some stones, 12 stones, and he has a dream. And the dream is enigmatic. We're all familiar with it, of the ladder that is pointing towards heaven, and yet its feet are towards the earth. And there are celestial beings. We're all familiar with the dream. There are celestial beings that are going up and going down. This is the dream that Jacob has, a dream of exile, a dream and prophetic dream for the future of the Jewish people. And there are many interpretations to that dream. What's telling is what happens next. What happens next is Jacob awakens from the dream, and he notices that the stone that he had placed on his head, it is no more 12 stones, but it has become one stone. Jacob takes that stone, that single stone, and he anoints it with oil, and he makes a certain monument. Now, the question which all the commentators grapple with is what happened in the middle of the night. Initially, there were 12 stones around Jacob's head. By the end of the dream, hocus pocus, they had been transformed into a single stone. And the Medrash comes to the rescue, and we will understand in a minute about Yom Yerushalayim, because this has all happened in where Jerusalem would be. And of course, the Medrash comes to the rescue and says that the 12 stones, which represent the 12 tribes, all were squabbling. Okay, obviously not to be taken literally, but they're squabbling. Each one wanted to be under the head of the patriarch Jacob, the holy Jacob, right? And eventually, seeing that there was this squabbling, these factions, and therefore a miracle was made, and they became one. And the commentators all asked the obvious question, which I'm sure you all had: well, how does that help the situation? They all wanted to be under the head of Jacob. Now, Jacob could only place his head on one particular piece of that rock. So now the 12 rocks have become one rock, but at the end of the day, Jacob's head could only rest on one rock. So therefore, why didn't they continue to squabble over the fact that they were not under Jacob's head directly? And the answer that is giving, I think it's by the Chidah, and Maharal also speaks about it, is as follows. When there is disunity, when everyone is in it for themselves, then of course each one would jockey for position and jostle to get what they want. It's a self-interest, self-gain. That's what it's all about. But where it is that there's a unification, right? Where there is this sense of cohesion, right? And where everyone becomes one, then it doesn't matter whether this part of the rock or that part of the rock is actually the resting place of Jacob's head, because we're all one entity. It's the same as, for example, if you have something that, if your hand hurts, right? You don't just say it's just my hand, it's your body's hurting, right? And in the same way, if something, if you have a pleasant experience, it's something that's experienced by the whole body. It's not just by one part of the anatomy. So therefore, the 12 stones representing the 12 tribes, the future of the Jewish people, which eventually became unified under Jacob's head, right? And once they became unified, therefore, there was no distinction. There was no difference to them whether Jacob was placing his head on one part of the rock or the other. It's telling that vision and that dream and prophetic vision for the future took place in Jerusalem, on Har Habayis, on the place where the temple would stand, right? And the significance and symbolism is tremendous, because Jerusalem, of course, it is the place where the temple stood, the place where Jews for thousands of years would come and would worship. But what's telling also is that it wasn't just a place that was recognized of great significance and holiness and sanctity by the Jewish people. In fact, on Sukkot, there were 70 sacrifices that were offered by the Jewish people, to each one representing one of the 70 nations of the world. So Jerusalem and the Temple Mount in particular was recognized from time immemorial as a place of great holiness and sanctity in which the Jewish people served, but it had a benefit for the whole world. And therefore there was this idea that there was these different roles within the people and within the world at large. And that was symbolized by that rock, with the 12 rocks representing 12 tribes, which then became unified and became one. And so it is that also the idea is that every nation has a slightly different role to play. Yes, in terms of holiness, as we've gone back over this time and again, Jacob's role, Yisrael's role would be the role of in the world of being the Or Goyim, that light to the nations, of being that God's ambassador, being able to be the conduit for showering the blessings of the Almighty on this world, leading by example, inspiring those around us. But every nation has a role to play. And therefore, there is a need for Jerusalem. The word Jerusalem, the root of the word, Yerushalayim, right? Yerushalayim, right? Arabs say Yerushalayim, yeah? So the root of the word is agreed upon. There is consensus. The root of the word means shalem, salam aleikum, shalom aleichem. It means shalom, peace, wholesomeness, completion. And therefore, Jerusalem is the place where the light of the Almighty's presence radiates outwards. it gives us a clarity of vision. It gives us purpose. It gives us meaning. It connects us to the Almighty. It is the place where we're able to come closest to the Shekhinah, to the divine presence, where we can feel that connection. It's like, I guess you can call it, like you've got lahavdil, you've got a mast, right? You've got your phone masts, and the closer you are to that mast, then the better the signal, or at least they say it is. And therefore, when it comes to Jerusalem, we recognize that it is a unifying place for sanctity, for kedusha, for purpose in life. And we hope and pray that there will be a peace restored to Jerusalem, especially around this time when tensions are high and there is political and social unrest. And we look forward to it being a place for many, many years to come, when it will be that light to the nations and a place of peace in our time. We continue now with Psalm 23, wishing everyone a happy Yom Yerushalayim. Harry, Caroline, Estelle, Rachel, Martin, Carol, Mervyn and Peter, and everyone else who are joining us. We wish you a wonderful Yom Yerushalayim Sameach. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Memorial prayer. Adonai Olamim Zacho Es Nishmas Ami Bas Aryeh Paul Kazmi Yom Yochi ben Moshe Eliezer Shlomo Yechiel ben Moshe Eliezer ben Zion ben Yitzchak Aryeh ben Shimon Leah Bas Baivo Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Katna Shalchu Linamam Bergat Eden Teimenu Chasam Lachim Balarachamim Yastrim B'Seitz Kanafam Leolamim Yitzchak Chayim Sashvasam and Nachlasam Yanuchu B'Shlam Mishkavam V'Nomar Amen. Lastly, before Shlema prayer, of course, we have in mind those that already sadly have been injured in the unrest in Jerusalem. Many policemen have been injured. Misha V'Echav Zinrom Shov Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo. Who Yivarech Rapes Achelim. Pavo Shanu Mispalim Pavo Ram. B'Schazak Kodesh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachim Aleichem Lachman Afosam. Vishlach Leim Refushlim Refushlim Shemaim. Lachol Avem Basach Shachol Yisrael. Refuat HaNefesh Refuat HaGuf. Hashavak Zman Karev V'Noma Amen Refuat Shalema. So we of course want an end to the violence in Jerusalem, and of course we don't want policies in Israel that are antagonistic. But that having been said, when every nation has come out and condemned Israel in the main for the violence, I always wonder. Somebody said to me, imagine, in Hertfordshire, or let's not take Hertfordshire, let's go to London. In London, there was missiles flying and landing in your backyard, or there were rocks that were being thrown around Trafalgar Square. Would everyone just turn a blind eye and say it's perfectly acceptable and we shouldn't respond, we shouldn't defend ourselves? I think the whole thing's preposterous, and Israel needs to do whatever it needs to do in a restrained, controlled fashion, which is what they do, to ensure that they defend and they protect the people of Israel. That's one of the basic rights of any nation. But of course, as we said, at the same time, we pray that there will be peace in Israel restored, and there will be a mutual respect and understanding between all factions, all fractions, and all peoples. Wishing everyone a good day and a Yom Yerushalayim Sameach, and please God will be able to visit Yerushalayim in the not too distant future.